What if I told you one column in Airtable could send multiple types of emails? Or that it could automatically change statuses or even update team members as you're working through your workflows in Airtable. That's what Airtable's automations can do, and more specifically, Airtable's new conditional automations. These conditional automations react to the way you add and edit records within Airtable. They're one of the most powerful features of Airtable and can save you hours of work every week. In some ways, it's like having a virtual assistant within Airtable. So in this video, we're covering the basics of Airtable's conditional automations and breaking it down into 3 parts. One is, what are these conditional automations? How do they differ from standard automations? 2, how to actually design and use them in Airtable. And 3, give you maybe one of the most helpful conditional automations, particularly if you have a team that's using Airtable on a daily basis. Let's start with what conditional automations are. Conditional automations are essentially a way to combine multiple standard automations into one single automation. They're a really nice way to clean up your automations, especially if you have a whole slew of automations in one base. Now, if you don't even know the basics of Airtable's automations, you can check out a previous video I did, and the link will be in the description below. To help you visualize the difference between standard automations and conditional automations, let's think of automations as a decision tree. For standard automations, it's pretty simple. If a particular action happens, that automation is triggered and runs. Now, if that particular action doesn't happen, that automation just sits there. Nothing happens. For conditional automations, it's a little more complicated. Now, when a particular action happens, that conditional automation can trigger and run. Now, if that particular action doesn't happen and something else happens, that conditional automation can do something else. It's a if this, then do this, but if this other thing happens, then do this. It's essentially Airtable making decisions based on your actions within that base. So with all of that in mind, let's actually jump into Airtable so you know how to use them and design them in Airtable. Now here we are in Airtable, and we are going to use the content calendar template, which is a standard template within Airtable. If you want to learn more about this base in Airtable, I actually covered it a little bit in my last video, so I'll put the link of that video in the description below. But let's jump into automations, which is in the upper right hand corner here where it says automations. So I'll click on that, and I will scroll down to create a custom automation. Now, I'm not going to worry about the name of this automation in this case, but if you're creating multiple automations and are going to be using the base frequently, naming your automations is really helpful so you know what they actually are. So I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to click over. Now for this automation, what I wanted to do is when particular collaborators create different content within the content pipeline, I want it to be dynamically changing those statuses. So let's say if Ash submits it, I want it to be one status. And if Lynn creates a content piece, I want it to be a different status. So to do that, what I need to start with is adding a trigger. So I'll add the trigger, and that'll be when a record is created. And I'll select the table that I want it to be watching, which is the content pipeline. So I'll select content pipeline, and I need to choose a record for testing. So I'll choose a record. And in this case, I wanted to pick museums. So now I have a successful test record to use. And here's where things get a little bit different from standard automations in Airtable. If I wanted to just have a status created when Ash submits it, I would just go to the standard automations. I would hit add action, and it'd be really simple. It'd be straightforward. But since we want it to be dynamically changing based on the collaborator that's submitting content, we want to go into conditional actions here and go to this plus button. So we'll hit the plus button, and you'll see it changes a little bit. Now, because I want it to be running based off the collaborators, what I need to do is hit this plus button, pick the record that I want it to be pulling that information from, and go to creator, which is a collaborator field in Airtable. So then in this case, I want it to be Ash because I want it to be changing the statuses based on Ash submitting that particular content. So I'll pick Ash. And let's see, let's test the conditions. So that was successful because in that record, Ash is the creator of that record. So we're good there. So you can see here, if creator is Ash Quintana, it runs no actions, but I want it to run an action. I want it to update the status if Ash submits a record. So to do that, I'll hit add action, and I want it to update that record because I want to update that status of that record. So I'll pick the table again, which is content pipeline, the record that I want it to update, which is from step 1. So I'll hit the record ID, and then I'll hit choose field. And this one, I want it to change the status. So to do that, I want it to be every time that Ash submits it, I want it to be on hold. And then I'll hit generate a preview. And this is kind of just like testing that record. So you can see, here's what it would look like if this automation ran. So you can see here in status, it cuts out the live because that status is just a single select. So it'll change it to on hold. So we have Ash set up, but what if we wanted to have a different status for a different collaborator? Well, essentially what we need to do is kind of repeat those steps and just change the status. So to do that, what we need to do is hit this plus button again, and you'll see it's like the same steps. So I'll hit this plus button, I'll pick the record, and I'll pick the collaborator or creator in this case again. And this time, let's pick Lee for this case. And if it's Lee, I want the status to be in progress. So now that we have, if the creator is Lee, I'll hit add action, and I wanted to update the record just like we did with Ash. So I'll pick the content pipeline, I'll hit the record ID from record 1 because we're changing it when the record is created. So I'll select the record ID, and I'll pick the status field here. And for the status here, instead of it being on hold, I want it to be in progress. So I'll select that, and I will generate a preview to see what it would be like. So you can see here, if Lee was the creator, instead of it being this live, it would just be in progress. So as you can see, this whole automation is now set up is that when Ash creates a record, the status would be on hold, as you can see here. And if Lee creates a record, it would be in progress. So in theory, you could create actually all these different conditional actions depending on who created the records. So this is really nice because if you do this for each of the collaborators, you would have all these different automations. You know, you'd have 8 separate automations if you had 8 different people and you want 8 different statuses for them. But with conditional automations, you can have one automation and it's making decisions based on who created that record. So now that we've covered how to design and use conditional automations, I want to show you one more example that might be one of the most helpful conditional automations within Airtable. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to create another custom automation. And for this automation, what I wanted to do is actually update the content creators when their piece goes live and update them how they want to be updated, right? So because some people like to be updated through email, some like to be updated through Slack, and people just like different communication styles. So to kind of match those communication styles, you can actually build that into your Airtable automations. So to get started, what I need to do is I hit add trigger. And for this one, I want to do when record matches conditions. I'll select the table and that'll be content pipeline. And the condition is when the status is live. It's gonna be really simple. So I'll choose a record for testing. And in this case, I want it to be museums because the record is live and it has Ash there. Now, if we were just running this automation just for Ash, we would just use the standard automations, but we're not. We want it to be for all the different content creators that are using this base. So to do this, what I need to do is go into conditional actions and hit this plus button here. Now I want it to be when Ash is doing it because I want it to be only for Ash's content. So I'll pick the creator and that'll be Ash here. So I'll do that. And I also want it to be for only like when the due date is today, because I don't want Ash getting all these notifications if we accidentally say that the particular content is live. That'd be really annoying for Ash. I want to make sure that we're not just having a bunch of accidental notifications. So I'll just pick is today. So there's that. And what I wanted to do is that when it's live and it's Ash and the due date is today, Ash likes it going through email. So I can use it as a send email via Airtable. That's what this is. Or if you're using like Gmail or using Outlook, you actually can send them through the particular email clients here. So you see Outlook here and you see Gmail here. For this case, I'm just gonna have Airtable send it in this case. So I'll hit send email. And as you can see, you can set up the to's, the subject, the message. I'm not gonna write all of that, but you can update it the way you want it to be done. Now, let's say Bailey likes being notified a different way. So I'm gonna hit this plus button here. And if the creator is, let's say it's Bailey here. So like creator, and I will pick Bailey. And I'll do the same thing for the date, just to make sure that Bailey's not getting a bunch of accidental notifications as well. So I'll hit today. So now that we have that set up, and then I will hit add action. And what I want that action to be, Bailey likes actually getting it through Slack. So then I would hit send a message through Slack, and then I could set it up all here in the Slack message. So Bailey would get a Slack message when her content goes live, and then with Ash's content goes live, it actually send Ash an email. So this conditional automation is really nice because it matches all of your Airtable workflows to your team's workflows, and everyone has different styles, and Airtable's conditional automations can match those different styles. All in all, these conditional automations are already one of the most powerful features of Airtable already. Yes, there are some weirdness to them if you get really complicated with these conditional automations, and they're definitely not as smooth as the Zapier conditional automations. However, given how fast Airtable iterates and develops these different products within Airtable, I would say that those conditional automations can be as smooth as Zapier's in a year or two from now. Now, if this video was helpful, I would love it if you can give it a like. And if you want more tips on Airtable, you can check out the other videos on this channel.